What's up everyone, this is Cher talking, welcome back to my channel. On today's video, I'll be making a full review for the 4th Anniversary Appreciation Romancing Festival Byunei banner that brings Byunei as multi-purpose support that gives attack, defense, status, and ailment resistance buffs. Then Goddess, a full-time damage dealer for both sun and heat with multiple chases. And Silence, an OG specialist that gives many buffs to the party and can fuel your OG Gauge. Then let's go straight out to rs.xyz website, starting with Byunei. She is a very defensive style with 103% endurance and 123% will. She also has 110% agility and 134% intelligence. Even though she's not really one of the best damage dealers, she can do enough damage. We even have a little higher charisma than Love for healings. Now, she starts the fight with 12 BP. She also gets 3 BP extra for a total of 6 per turn. She has 2 damage reduction passes of 30% each, and she has 60% damage increase at all times. Now, when she lands an attack, she chases with Shadow Cutter. That is her skill number 1. Very weak attack, just has E power, but it's raw and has slash and shadow damage. It was probably made for Spiral Corridor 270, but it's also a free chase. She may also chase with Trinity Blaster 50% of the time. That is a much stronger attack. Slash and Shadow again attacks 3 times with C power. This will be stronger than some 4S power attacks. Okay, she also carries plenty of different effects via passive. The first one is called Dragon's Blessing. She will apply this on the start of battle 2 times just for that turn. Dragon's Blessing has many different effects. For example, it triggers 2 times and grants an attack boost that increases damage potential by 20%, lasts for 2 turns and can stack. So, if your character has multi-attacks or chase attacks, it can trigger 2 times this attack boost, up to receiving 80% attack boost. But, to be honest, you should only consider the first 2 stacks because, well, not all of your attacks will actually get it all. And then the defense boost decreases damage taken by 25%. You can still get this 2 times, but it only lasts for that turn. So your character has to be fast and attack before the enemy, but she kind of fixes this problem as well. And then when attacking, you will also get endurance and will buff by 20%. Very important status that decreases damage taken. So it is a passive that works to increase your damage via attack boost, but decreases damage taken via defense boost, endurance, and will buff. Will buff also decreases chance of being debuffed and getting inflicted with ailments. Like I said, you need to be faster than the enemy, but she kind of fixes that because she also casts this action order up with extreme effect being the highest one I have seen for 3 turns. So action order up, it's a way to increase your likeliness to attack before the enemy without considering agility. Some enemies may have fast attacks like in the 7 Heroes fight, and if your action order is buffed and you use a fast attack, then it increases your chances of attacking before the enemy. Sometimes you may need, because you may need to buff to reduce damage taken. Then she can keep casting action order up, but that will be related to her skill tree that we'll be discussing later. Another effect is the New Year Blessing that she also casts on the start of a fight. This one is also interesting, but this one is when attacked. She will allow everyone to activate the following: a damage block for 1 time 1 turn, meaning that the first hit will do damage, the second will be blocked entirely, and only happens once just for that turn. Then you will also grant yourself an attack boost that increases damage potential by 15% for 2 turns. And then buff your ailment resistance by large effect. That is amazing because we haven't seen any other character allowing us to self-buff ailment resistance when attacked. I have to talk about something here now. Remember Princess White Rose? She had a Halloween style that was very useful for a lot of time. Because when she was attacked, she would then buff all surviving allies' will by 15%. Back then we could not buff so much, and then this allowed us to increase our will to a point where we will negate debuffs and ailments. And Princess White Rose worked it for a lot of time. Now enemies can buff break you. So buffing will is easier, but it's not perfect, because if they buff break, you'll be left with no buffs. But the thing is, Byunei buff cannot be removed. Just like attack and defense boosts, ailment resistance cannot be removed. That's why she becomes so useful, and a meta unit as well. But okay, you get these two effects on the start of battle. How do you keep casting those? Let's look at the skills. The first one is Shadow Cutter, the skill that she chases. Well, this one you only use if you don't have VP. The second one is the first skill that you're going to use in a fight. Mirage Dragon Barrier will give herself a defense up, decreasing damage taken by 20% for the whole fight. Now she has 3 defensive passives to herself. And then we'll also grant the Dragon's Upheaval. That is the same Dragon's Blessing 2 times for 1 turn. So you're going to get permanent effects. Nice. So the most important things, the defense boost that decreases damage taken by 25%, and you can land it 2 times, and the endurance and wheel buff in attack boost when attacking will be permanent. The only problem with this effect is if you are running people like Shirei, because Shirei does not attack. Well, then he won't be using Byunei's passive, but he also does not use Matriarch passives as well. That allows you to buff when attacking. Remember, Buffer Matriarch also had the same issue with non-attackers. Now, you can think about different squad compositions when using Byunei because of that. And now let's discuss skill 3, Soryu Elegant Windblade. That is a far row attack as well. It is not fast, as you can see, but she would then buff Action Order by Extreme Effect for 3 turns, meaning that it will still help a lot to attack before the enemy, and everyone gets his buff. And then cast that New Year's Blessing for that turn. New Year's Blessing, it's this passive that will allow you to damage block, attack boost when being attacked, and also ailment resistance when being attacked. The problem is this skill costs 12 BP. It's not that strong, just 8 power because it's raw. It was also made for 270 Spiral. She would then buff all ailment resistance by large effect. There is very large effect as well that was released with Key, and she was a very useful ailment resistance buffer. The very first one that was dependable, and she will also buff Will. Byunei can also buff Will. And then we got Muse that actually worked even better. She can cleanse ailments, she can cleanse debuffs, so her ailment resistance was very nice. As you can see here, it's very large. Byunei buffs a little less, because she can actually keep buffing via her passive too. Now, she has 60 PP per turn, remember? And you start the fight using Mirage Dragon Barrier, because you want to have this. Now, on this turn 2, you can use Soryu Elegant Windblade. You still have enough BP. But then after that, you have to rely on other sources of BP generation. We can talk about some of those that will work super well with Byunei. For example, Leon. Leon has a way to give 3 BP to the party if he keeps using his Imperial Sun's Word. Shirei, even though he does not really work with all of her passives, can also be used to give 3 BP every turn if you manage to combo him well with other BP generations. That can be people like Candy, like this style. That can also be Thomas if the enemy is using blunt attacks. That can also be someone like Esper, someone like Hardy, and many others. BP generation is not much of a problem in this current era, so you can use her skill number 3 every turn. There is even another character that works super well with Byunei if you want to make a full Shadow squad. She works well with Saruin. Remember, Saruin gives you 3 BP when you are using Shadow attacks via his Chain of Grudge, meaning that she actually has now 9 BP per turn. She will also get stronger damage via buffs, so think about that. Saruin is also very useful style for 270, so they combo well. Now, I know that this is still not a perfect setup. If you don't have BP generation, she will then switch to Shadow Cutter and then Soryu Elegant Windblade. In this case, it is still nice because, look, the defense boost is attached to the second skill that you have running all the time. And here is just the damage block, the ailment resistance, and the attack boost. You may not need a damage block. It is awesome when it triggers, but it still depends on enemy behavior. Let's say an enemy attacks 6 times in a turn. Blocking one of the attacks may not be so incredible, but if the enemy uses many single target attacks, damage block is amazing. But since this buffs ailment resistance when used, and also will buff when you are attacked, I do believe that skipping a turn is not really all that bad. Meanings, Byunei without PP generation is still okay. Now, we shall also discuss inheritances. I don't think she needs inheritance anyway, but you can get purple haze coat from this other style of her. And this one will give her a defense up, another one, the fort, and 20% damage reduction for the whole fight. Will buff all of her status by up to 50% if you level up, and a hit up to all surviving allies that increases damage potential by 15% for the whole fight. And you can also use that Sky Convalescence from another version of her. That is AoE, Recover, Reviver, that also gives 2 BP to the party. But it costs 2 LP and 10 BP. But if you get 2 back, it's not that costly. It's just a panic button. If something is going to happen and someone is gonna die, you can use it. But she works super well as she is because you don't actually want to skip turns all that much. And you don't really need to pull for these older Byuneis just for that effect. But we should also discuss something else. We had a other version of Byunei that was being used in some recent content. She has plenty of defensive setup. On turn 1, she has 1 defense up to the party, and then on turn 5, she gets another 1, and then on turn 10, yet another 1. 3 defense ups, but takes time to apply. She also has the start of turn buff to agility and intelligence, not as important to everyone, but she was just using Harvest Breath. That is a support fast skill that gives attack defense boost. The defense boost is just 15%, lasts for 2 turns and will stack, and then she will buff all ailment resistance to the party. If you inherit that skill number 2 from the current Byunei, then she will apply all of the effects from Dragon's Blessing. The extra attack boost, the extra defense boost, the extra endurance heal buffs when you are attacking. You still have to attack before the enemy to make that really work. And you'll be losing on the action order up. But in some fights, this may actually work. If you want to test out, this build of Byunei will be more defensive. But she won't attack because this skill here is pure support. And I don't know. It's just an idea. I believe that this Byunei is good as she is and does not need inheritance, and you don't need to use the other one anymore. Because if you want, you can just keep using skill number 3, and in many situations you can keep using every single turn. Okay, Byunei is much better than I thought. When I used her on a challenge, she was just helping a lot and decreasing damage taken, and allowing people to not get inflicted with ailments. This idea of buffing ailment when being hit is new, and will actually help in some situations where the enemies have very high status and you cannot keep buffing will. That is exclusive to this version of Byunei. So, as my final state, I believe this Byunei deserves either a 4.5 or 5 grade. I am totally undecided. I even asked in my Discord channel. If this ailment resistance buff proves to be very useful, it should be a 5. If it's not as useful, because it still depends on boss behavior, a 4.5. But the thing is, the banner has only 3 styles, and it's coming after many good banners. It is easier to skip this Byunei. She also competes with Katarina. They can still work together, and if you had this one here, some of the effects are pretty similar. But Katarina needs to land weak attacks and resist to trigger other effects. The good thing about Katarina is that while she applies lots of defense boost, she still allows every people to heal as well. As you can see, when they land a weak attack, they can heal. And self-buff for offense as well, while Byunei is fully defensive besides the attack boost. Okay, I believe Byunei is a good character to pick if you have enough gens. But now let's move into Goddess. Goddess has good defenses as well, 111 endurance, 123% will, and 130% intelligence and 101% agility. So all status that she needs are high. Because she's a special type of M-Arts, she actually lands physical attacks. This is something that you need to understand. Moving on, she starts the fight with 12 BP. She has heat up for 20% damage increase for the whole fight 5 times for 100% on turn 5. Alongside another 20 from Mighty Water, she will have 120% damage her potential. She has also just 2 extra BP, so 5 BP per turn. And she decreases damage taken by 30% at all times, and another 40 if she resists. By the end of a turn, she will recover her HP by very small, and will remove all debuffs and cleans from ailments, alongside 25 points of OG Gouge. Now, she starts the fight with 12 BP, and OG Gouge fully charged. She will then grant herself this New Year Pursuit 2 times, with no turn limit. This is very similar to Tatiana passive, I'll be talking about later, but when she attacks on OG Gouge, she will also grant another 2 of this New Year Pursuit. The thing is, you get 2, right? But when you attack, you can only trigger it once, because she doesn't have any chase attack. And her chase attacks will not trigger this as well, because it even says here. We will have to talk about her chase possibilities via inheritance though. But since she starts the fight with the OG Gouge fully charged, and she already has this, when you attack, you're going to get this chase called Sun Laser. Sun Laser has 4 hits of 8 power, but each hit will then buff her heat and sun attack by 50% each. Since this skill has both sun and heat attack, you're going to increase the power by 100% damage potential. Okay, that's already awesome. And her skill number 3, called Sun Drop, is a single target attack with also sun and heat, where it can buff heat and sun attack boost as well. This time it can reach as much as 55%. All buffs only last for that turn specifically. It is a triple S power attack that feels more like a 4S power attack nonetheless. So if you use this on turn 1, you're going to get 4 chases, and they will be very strong, even if it just says 8 power. This keeps scaling and increasing damage with each new hit. As you can see, each hit buffs again. Nice. So you start the fight with 2 triggers of your New Year's Pursuit, but you need to land weak attacks, as you can see here. So, and on turn 2, if you attack again on a weak attack, you can have as much as 8 bullets of Sun Laser, because you still have 1 New Year Pursuit from your start of battle, and you got another one by attacking OG. This also leads to some very interesting setups. Okay, so she needs to land a weak attack to trigger Sun Laser. If you want, you can use a normal attack that is just blunt damage, for example, in an enemy that is not weak to blunt, like right now we have the Earth Dragon, and store your bullets. You can store your bullets, because there's no turn limit. Look at this, no turn limit. Like I said, she's pretty similar to Tatiana, but not exactly like Tatiana. Tatiana has this weak stamp, but it has 2 turn duration, so she needs to land weak attacks, and she cannot trigger overdrive or she will lose all of the setup. But it's like the same way, it is a stance that you acquire, and you get it every turn, and it has 2 times, meaning that on turn 2 and beyond, you can actually chase 8 times. The difference between those units, Tatiana does not need OG, while Goddess has to attack on overdrive to trigger New Year's Pursuit. You can use a normal attack even on overdrive to store your New Year Pursuit without using in that turn. It will depend on the situations. She also works super well with Silence, that is a character that is also on this banner, because she will get into overdrive all the time, storing more, or just attacking every turn you want. Okay, but you have to remember that she gets 25 points of OG Gouge by the end of turn, so when you are using her, you usually get into OG every other turn. Nice. All of her damage comes from scaling sun and heat attack boosts. She doesn't have much damage potential on start, but eventually damage will stack. Now, let's talk about skills. The first one is called Sun Flaring. It is a free skill with E power that buffs her intelligence by 25%, and it's also sun and heat. Well, it's something that you use if you don't have VP. Second skill is kind of really good. First Sunrise, it's a recovery spell that can also revive, and will heal for around 2000. Will reduce the BP cost of all skills by 2 BP to the party. It lasts for 3 turns. And then it will grant OG Gauge Full to everyone. Yeah, this is a type of skill for OG specialists attached to a damage dealer. The cost is 8 BP, but it does not use LP, so that's great. What you can do is attack on the first turn with Sun Drop, do a lot of damage, and on the second turn, use First Sunrise, for example, and allow all of your other characters to get to Overdrive as well. Many characters have special chases on Overdrive, so they will be even better. And the BP cost reduction is a way to generate BP too. Depends on the length of the fight as well, because you can use this every other turn if the fight's not too long, less than 8 turns for example, and then you will not lose anything, because you got your stances to use your chains attacks, but you just didn't use it. It's not like Tatiana that has to keep attacking since her stance only lasts for 2 turns. In the case of Goddess, it is here for no limit. Nice. So, on turn 3, you will be attacking and chasing with her skill 2 times. And that is 8 hits of A power, where each new hit does more damage. And then, of course, when you are on Overdrive, you're probably gonna use Sun Drop if you have enough BP, or then Sun Flare Ring if you don't have enough BP. Now, Goddess is one of the best damage dealers right now because of this, and also having access to this skill is awesome. But she can get even stronger. Well, it relies on having access to her Summer style via Arsenal Ball. Arsenal Ball is a support and fast skill that uses 10 BP. 10 BP is a lot, but then it gives her 4 damage blocks and no turn limit. She will just block 4 hits, no questions asked. And then by the end of turn, if no damage is taken, she would then guarantee herself this jump. Jump allows her on the next turn to chase with Arsenal Shiny Spike. That is a Blunt and Sun attack, Blunt and Sun instead of Sun and Heat, and attacks random enemies 4 times. Instead of A power, it's just E power. Overall, observing the final damage output, it deals half the damage of the other attack. But each hit has a medium chance to apply damage block, so you get at least an average of 1 damage block when talking about RNG. Okay, and if you don't take damage in the next turn, you can keep triggering this. But nonetheless, this skill already gives you Quick Attack. That guarantees that when she attacks on Overdrive, she will always chases with Arsenal Shiny Spike. It's 3 damage. You are going to chase 4 times with E power. And instead of 8 attacks, you then have now 12 via your chase attacks. If you happen to trigger Jump on the turn before Overdrive, you will then use Arsenal Shiny Spike 2 times. So if you stored 8 hits plus 8 hits, 16 hits. A lot of damage. You just don't know the order of your chase attacks because the game doesn't know. It uses it at random. So using this Summer Goddess Inheritance is really nice to improve the damage output of Goddess. It will probably improve it by around 25% on average, but it is very nice since it's just 3 damage. Now, Goddess can also be used for something else. For example, if you have her counter style, she can be used on the Megalith Dragon. You can inherit 1000 Blade Masamune. This one will enter a defensive counter stance, and she counters with Masamune Fury. And that allows her to build a lot of OG Gauge by being hit, and still OG, you can use 1000 Blade Masamune, and you will still trigger her chase attacks. So pretty useful for Megalith Dragon, not really something very useful outside of it. But right now, she's the best Sun damage dealer. Also being a Heat damage dealer means that if you skip it on Apollo, that was the best one, she is now replacing Apollo generally. But Apollo is still good because he has Slash and Heat. But there was also Shaw. If you miss it out on Shaw, she can also replace Shaw for fire damage on single targets. So she can also be used together with Firebringer squads, because Firebringer gives extra BP generation and other stuff as well, extra damage, and they will self-buff status too. But I don't know if fire squads are just so useful these days, but Goddess can also be used with Empress squads, because Empress also increases damage for Sun squads and allows you to get other effects as well, like for example, defense boost. The 3 BP that you generate from this passive already helps a ton. It's easier to make a Sun squad because you can still add other people like Leon to the party, and he's one of the best units right now. With that said, Goddess is a very strong damage dealer, with access to a very useful healing skill, can get much better via inheritance. Because she does not give party support, I believe that she deserves a 4 out of 5. With the inheritance, she can get even better, but not really required. Still skippable if you want to summon for future units that can give other effects to the party. Moving on, we have now Silence, the last character of the banner. He does have okay endurance and will, 105%, 110% agility, it is needed because he is a buffer, and 129% dexterity. Okay status. Moving on, he starts the fight with 12 BP, he has 20% damage increase at all times, and then another 40 on combo and another 40 on overdrive, for a total of 100% when attacking on overdrive with more than one unit. By the end of a turn, he will give OG Gorge by 15 points to everyone, and on start of a turn he gives this attack boost to everyone that increases damage potential by 15%. He also buffs overdrive damage by 20% for 3 times, to a total of 60% on turn 3. But he also increases overdrive damage on turn 1 by 50% even, and will fill the overdrive gauge of everyone. So you start the gauge fully filled, and then on overdrive attacks he will then buff all surviving allies, STR, dexterity, agility and intelligence, the offensive status by 20%, not much. Then he will grant all surviving allies this attack boost of 15% increasing damage, so it will stack with his other start of turn buff. And then a defense boost that will grant all surviving allies damage reduction of 20% according to JP, because this is AoE, comes from a passive. He would then also grant all surviving allies another end of turn OG Gouge of 25 points. So if you stack with his end of turn 15 points, you have now 40 points in that OG turn. Okay, and at the end of every 3 turns, he's going to restore the limit of his skill tree. That will be talking in a few. Now, skill number 1 is Bloodsucker. This is just a single target slash attack that also recovers HP by around 1,200. And it's just 1 BP, almost free. The second one, Umbrella Dance. This is a single target attack with Pierce and Shadow. Shadow means that he works well with Sudden squads. Double S power, 9 BP cost. It will also buff all surviving allies attack boost by up to 15%. 3 turns, and also an overdrive attack boost, increasing by another 15%, but only for overdrive attacks. That's not really his main skill, and you can use this when you don't have a stack of skill tree. Fantasy Umbrella Drop. This is fast, much better. Single target. It is weaker, just S power instead of double S, but you can only use it 2 times per battle, and before attacking grants morale up extreme, increasing damage potential by 50% for only 1 turn. Okay, so that makes it stronger. And then after that, he will then grant end of turn OG Gouge full for that turn. That is nice because, look, when you are on overdrive, you can use him to attack. And he will increase damage of everyone by 50% alongside his already casted attack boost from start of turn and another one from his overdrive attack. So you have 80% damage increase to the party. And then the OG Gouge full. Okay, how does it different from Labelle? Labelle had a very good setup for overdrive. She was the best one, and then OG Gouge started to charge super fast, and sometimes you can just use Charade to grant more OG points. Labelle had to use Breezy Footbath to give an attack boost. This one reaches 30% on max level. and then fill all OG gauge. Then she will have to attack to recharge the skill, and then use Breezy Foot Bath again, keeping the cycle. But she doesn't attack when she's using Breezy Foot Bath. There are turns where she won't be attacking. And on Overdrive, you have to leave Labelle out of the squad. Most times, sometimes she will have enough, but she does not fully charge herself, all other surviving allies. Now, Silence is the upgraded form, because he always attacks, he always charges himself as well. But now, you can only use this skill 2 times per battle, right? Okay, you start the fight with the OG Gauge, fully fill it, for everyone. So, if you want to OG again on turn 2, you use another Fantasy Umbrella drop. But you can also do something different. For example, by the end of turn 1, you already have 40 points of OG Gauge. Meaning that on the next turn, depending on the skills of your characters and all, you can get in the Overdrive again, just by using your skills. And then on turn 3, you'll be on Overdrive once more. And then Silence can use his skill whatever he wants. Can be any skill like Bloodsucker, if he wants to save the usage of Fantasy Umbrella drop. But since you have to use it every 3 turns at least, it may be nice to, on turn 3, then use Fantasy Umbrella drop and then get it recharged. And then if you want, you can use on the next turn just to guarantee another OG Gauge. I'm just saying that if you want every turn OG, you can use skill 3. You can get 3 OGs in a row. But if you want to use him closer to what Labelle does, you can use it every 2 turns or even every 3 turns. That will still allow him to perform similarly. And he already charges a full Overdrive Gauge on turn 1. The current Labelle cannot do this. It relied on another style that is not even released on Global yet. So he kind of has a little bit of everything all other Overdrive specialists had, like Barthélemy, way to increase status and also even vagueness. His defense boost is not as great, but it does help a little, I believe. Okay, I don't think that the stuff that Silence does, it will be very relevant in the future. Because, well, he could have do more for the party defensively. Well, right now, all characters are doing everything, so that's my expectations for these characters as well. But he works well if you just want to do quick damage and the fight is short. If it's too long, maybe it won't affect as much. Like I say, sometimes we are running Charade, and Charade already gives lots of points. You can use Charade together with him if you want as well, because Charade will give you as much as 30 points if you use his skill Rainbow Flowering Strings every single turn. So 30 plus another 40, it's already 70. Probably going to fill your OG Gauge anyway. Okay, so sadly, I believe he needed a chase attack as well to be in line with the current damage dealers. His damage is not that high, it's just allowing other people to do a little more. Hence why I say that he may not be so game-changing. If it was more in line like what Goddess does, she's a very good damage dealer, but also a character that can charge OG and heal. It's an extra. That's okay. If Silence was a damage dealer with the extra of being an OG specialist, that would be nicer, but he is a little limited. But still better than all the other OG specialists. Talking about the future, well, we have to be a little more lenient when giving a grade. I think a 3.5 out of 5 is more than deserved. We don't really need this type of character anymore, but they can be nice in some fights. With all that said, let's go back to the banner image. Is this banner worth summoning for? Well, yes, it will receive a Silver Plus award, even with 3 units, because Byunei is just so good. She can help in fights that have a lot of ailments and you cannot buff Will, and it's easy to use her in any squad, because she does not need to resist, she does not need to land weak attacks, she does not need inheritance as well. Goddess is a very strong damage dealer for an element that doesn't have competition, and gets even stronger if you have her Summer Style. If you have her Summer Style, I would say that this banner is really worth pulling for. Silence is good because he replaces Labelle, but we don't use Labelle as much because she doesn't offer much defensively. And Silence is not really a strong damage dealer or good defensively. He is just a character for gimmick fights, I believe. So, overall, he's still the best OG specialist right now. And I pulled it on this banner, got all 3 units, but if you don't have too many gems, drop when you get Byunei and Goddess. Don't go for Silence. There will be other Overdrive specialists in the future. With all that said, this is my opinion. What is yours? Did you get the character? Say here in the comment section if you agree with me or not. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't, and if you want to support the channel, there are also links on the description. I hope to see you soon on the next video or live stream. Goodbye.